consider the music industry as a person with a disease. Let's just say diabetes. It's not life-threatening unless you don't manage it properly. The movement of music sharing to a digital medium is a logical extension of analog formats, but the implications of this shift forces the music industry to reevaluate its structure and approach in marketing, development, and distribution, much as an ailing person with diabetes has to reconsider the way they eat, exercise, and take their medication. As a consumer of music over a variety of media throughout a variety of formats, I've come to personally appreciate what's working and what isn't, as the music industry attempts to adapt to survive. Before we can evaluate how fully the peer-to-peer movement and music industry should move forward, we have to take a look at how the music industry has attempted to cope with these changes and why those things aren't working. Sharing music isn't a new phenomenon. It's something that has begun long ago. Fouce tells us that it's something that is an ingrained cultural behavior, ingrained from the days of cassette tapes. We began recording even from the radio, making mixtapes, sharing them with friends. So this idea of sharing on a peer-to-peer network isn't anything new, it's just a new way of doing it. Peer-to-peer, Chiou, Huang, and Li tell us, is also a way for independent artists to escape the stranglehold of industry-approved production companies and share their work with a wider audience to gain a following. In a world where social media dictates so much someone's well-being as an artist, this is a really important thing. Listeners also prefer free listening services, even if they're ad-supported, to paying subscription fees for music that they don't actually own, Papiers, Eggers, and Vlomart tell us. So how do the industry make up for these people who would prefer to go to a free source, say Pandora, where they listen to ads? Well, they make up this cost with a new wave of putting the cost onto loyal listeners, people who Plaschettis would call victims of the boxed and deluxe dilemma, people who are buying the next big thing just to get that one extra song that wasn't on the last version. The music industry establishments need to increase the quality of the albums put out by their artists, as well as to broaden their search to include artists that they might have overlooked because they didn't fit the commercial mold. They have to consider the fact that their modern listeners have a demanding and sophisticated and discerning ear. They want to listen to lots of different things, and they aren't satisfied with a few good singles. They're not going to buy a whole album off of that. Friedman tells us that the reason many listeners are moving to peer-to-peer services is because they can get everything they want for free and find new and interesting things that are difficult or impossible to find in traditional sources. The industry needs to respect the loyal consumers of their work as well, not bleed them dry, banking on their commodity fetishism as a cash cow for a failing business model. Burkart tells us that commodity fetishism is what built the music industry to what it is today, these people who would purchase every album by an artist, who would collect these artworks as something to hold and to share with other people. We're doing this now in a digital format, but it's cheaper, it's different. Plaschettis tells us that the people who still hold to this physical model of commodity fetishism are the ones who are suffering from the failures of the music industry to adapt. Subscription models should also follow the example of, say, Pandora, and always have an ad-based free option, or they'll risk losing a major section of their listening population to other options. Other options could be peer-to-peer, or they could be free subscription services. Peer-to-peer resources can become a powerful ally for the industry if the music industry is willing to stop expensive lawsuits and hammer out mutually beneficial business models. These are things where ad-supported peer-to-peer services could link with portions of the music industry, such as iTunes, that have contracts with these artists. It can help the industry find independent artists that they might actually like to have on their label and prove that these are things that people would pay to listen to. Instead of an industry wheezing and muttering about how everyone is out to get it, we could have an industry thriving on partnership, respect for listeners, and open-mindedness about the future of their organization, a world where the customer really is king and that's not just lip service. I would never ask anyone to break the law, but I can beg you to think about what you're paying for, and is it actually what you want, how you want it? If you're paying for an expensive iTunes subscription when you could be getting pretty much the same thing on Pandora with ads, is that really what you want to do with your money? If you're paying for expensive artists where you only like a song or two on what they're giving you, just because it's something that came out and is top 40, wouldn't you rather look around and see what's new and fresh and cheaper, possibly even free? Whether or not you do that legally is your choice. But what I'm saying is you need to think if that money is worth shelling out. Are we going to support a dying industry or force it to change its ways? Digital downloads, legal and illegal alike, haven't broken the music industry, but they have certainly brought rapid and glaring attention to problems existing in the business model. Just as they have magnified the problem, so can they be part of the solution. With a partnership extended from the music industry, who hold most of the cards at this point, we could really build something sustainable for the future. The music industry isn't that old as a business model, and the fact that it morphed into what it is not even 100 years ago suggests that perhaps it's time for it to morph into something new. Instead of thinking about how to keep their heads above water, they could be building a ship that will last for another century or more. Our diabetic music industry could live a long and fulfilling life, given the proper lifestyle changes, diet, exercise, that sort of thing. It needs to be willing to make those changes. It needs to be willing to succeed. It needs to be willing to compromise. But given a continuation of its current half-ditch efforts, it can only force itself into an early grave. And as the customer, we have to decide if we're willing to let it do that, or if we're going to force it to change its ways by not playing their games. Thank you.